Hello students, welcome to Unacademy platform. This platform provides you daily live classes, structured courses, live test quizzes, and unlimited access on subscription. You can also download Unacademy Learning app, which is available on both Google Play as well as Apple App Store. And daily live classes, structured courses, everything is available on this platform also. Okay. Now, this is about me, and this is my Unacademy profile link, and this is my Telegram link. So if you have any questions, any doubts on my classes, on my discussions, you can ping me here. Okay, these are the top educators on Unacademy platform, so you can watch their courses also. Okay, their lectures also. These are different subscription plans available on the platform, and again these are available at 10% discount if you apply the code Amit PS. Okay, again these are different subscription plans available at 10% discount if you apply this very code, that is Amit PS. Okay, Amit PS. Amit PS. Okay, so let us start our analysis. So today the editorial that I have chosen is from the Hindu newspaper, and it is about the decision taken by Monetary Policy Committee. Okay, so it is a committee which is responsible for formulation of monetary policy. Earlier it was done by RBI alone, but now it is done by 6-member Monetary Policy Committee. In this Monetary Policy Committee, there are 6 members, 3 are from RBI, and 3 members are government nominees. Okay, 3 RBI members, 3 members from RBI, and 3 are from government side, or you can say they are government nominees. Now, why this was adopted? Because now, if the representation in Monetary Policy Committee, the very body which is interested with this task of formulation of monetary policy, has a representation from both central bank as well as government. In that sense, this Monetary Policy Committee also brings a coordination between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Okay, so fiscal policy is something which is prepared by the government. You know about the finance ministry, and monetary policy traditionally has been prepared by RBI. So a kind of coordination that was required in order to bring about effective measures, that was missing, and that is something which has been achieved by combining these two. Okay, let us start. So Friday's decision by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India to maintain status quo on benchmark interest rate and continue with an accommodative policy stance for as long as necessary has been widely welcomed as being pro-growth. Okay, so actually inflation has also been the problem in recent months, but now it is the time that a consensus has been building for growth. Okay, in order to contain inflation, if you know the basics of economics here, interest rates needs to be increased. Okay, why? Because increased interest rate will make what? It is going to make money dearer. Getting it? And decrease of interest rate will make money cheaper, and cheaper money promotes growth. Are you getting it? So low interest rate would mean low cost of credit, and this would mean higher level of investment. Getting it? Now understand one more thing. With the Monetary Policy Committee noting that the signs of economic recovery were still far from broad-based, the panel asserted that it was incumbent on policymakers to support a durable rebound. Okay, what it means that Monetary Policy Committee noted what? Signs of economic recovery, and that was very much visible, especially starting from the festive season. ओके, दिवाली दशहरा के टाइम से ही एक रिकवरी देखने को मिल रही है और आपने जीएसटी कलेक्शन वगैरह में भी देखा कि कलेक्शन बढ़ा हुआ है. तो that necessitated a kind of monetary policy which policymakers view that it should support a durable rebound. Monetary Policy Committee also flagged its expectation that inflation would continue to remain elevated through the coming months to an average 6.3%. Actually, the kind of policy that we have been adopting, especially after 2014-15, is inflation targeting policy. Okay, and this inflation targeting policy provides for keeping the inflation level from at plus minus 4 plus minus 2 level. Okay, so the inflation targeting policy actually says that inflation should be between 2 to 6%. So 6.3% is more than 6%. In that sense, it is saying that inflation remains elevated because it is more than 6%. Okay, so the Monetary Policy Committee, under the monetary policy framework that it is working on, that framework considers this range or this band of inflation to be a comfortable place. Okay, so this is a band which is, according to framework, is comfortable level of inflation, because you will again recall that inflation, a moderate level of inflation, is good for economy. Okay, a moderate level of inflation is good for economy. We don't want inflation to be zero. Why? Because if inflation is zero, that would mean there is no increase in price. If there is no increase in price, means what? Production, or those who are producing the things, will not have any incentive to produce more. Are you getting it? And that is why and if it goes beyond a limit, if inflation goes beyond a limit, that would mean that people do not have the capacity or do not have purchasing power, because they cannot afford the products at such high level, at such high price, and that is why producers will be left with unsold products. So that is also going to decrease productivity. Okay, that is why a comfortable level of inflation is maintained. Well above 6% upper bound of the target range, and I told you upper bound of the target range is 6% through the second half of the current fiscal. The RBI, which in October estimated retail inflation to range between 4.5% to 5.4% in the 6-month period, has in just 2 months raised its projection for price gains by at least close to 1 percentage point. So that was the former estimate. Now it has been revised and 1 percentage increase is expected. So 5.4% plus 1% equals to 6.4%, and that is actually near about the same measure or same inflation, same level of inflation that we have at present time. Seen in this slide, Monetary Policy Committee's decision shows that RBI is clearly prioritizing growth over price stability for now. Why? Because even though inflation is higher, that even though inflation is higher, but even then Monetary Policy Committee did not cut down the interest rate, because further cut down in any interest rate is also going to demotivate demotivate the growth. Okay, so just trying to help you in revising the things here. For growth, what we want? For growth, we want low interest rate. Okay, and for containing inflation, we want high interest rate. Generally, I am not saying there are no exceptions or there can't be any exception to this rule. Generally, what Monetary Policy Committee adopts is this particular approach. Okay, so the point here is this, that higher, even when inflation is higher, Monetary Policy Committee is not cutting down the interest rate, and this shows that Monetary Policy Committee is focusing on growth. Okay, so I think this is clear. While the compulsion to ensure that monetary policy remains broadly supportive of an economy that is in recession as a fallout of COVID-19 pandemic and accompanying lockdown is understandable, the rate setting panel's readiness to shrug off both persistently high inflation and its own outlook on prices cause of concern. Actually, the editorial is saying that economy is already in turmoil. Okay, so Indian economy has already entered into recession, if you go by the technical definition of recession. Because of that technical definition, if there is a negative growth rate for two successive quarters, an economy is said to be called in recession. Okay, now if that is the case, that economy in in recession, then the obvious approach of Monetary Policy Committee would be to take care of the growth or to increase the productivity. In that sense, that particular support to growth is justified. But the editorial says that the concern regarding inflation uh, should also have been a major factor in taking any particular decision in Monetary Policy Committee. So inflation should also have been a major concern. That is what we mean here. That is what the editorial is pointing out. That apart from growth, that is an obvious choice for any monetary policy committee at this particular time when economy is already in recession. The factor of inflation should not have been ignored. That is what they are saying. Recent increase in the prices of iron ore, steel, and transportation fuel also add to the worries that the cost pressures are continuing to accumulate at a time when the economy is still well underwater. Okay, so what is needed for growth? Productivity. And what is needed for productivity? Low cost of production. But because of these measures and these factors mentioned in this particular point, there is still higher cost for production. Now, if cost of production is higher, that is going to decrease the productivity in medium and long term, ultimately affecting the growth negatively. The point here is this, that if Monetary Policy Committee is focusing on growth, and justifiably so, but even then the editorial points out that the factor of cost cannot be ignored, and factor of cost is of concern here because of the inflation. Okay, the RBI has also surprisingly raised its GDP forecast for the full year. So this is the view of the editorial, that RBI has raised its GDP forecast, and that is a surprise for the newspaper here. The central bank now expects the economy to shrink by only 7.5% in the 12 months ending in March, a full 2 percentage points uh, shallower than 9.5%. Okay, contraction it had projected in October. And this is understandable because I will go with the projection of RBI because, as if you believe finance minister, green shoots are already visible in economy. Throughout the pandemic period, you have seen that although economy has been in lull, but the capital market kept on making new strides. Okay, although there are various concerns in the economy, but a clear, definitive signs of recovery have been visible. And that is why RBI has revised this estimate, whereby it is saying that the contraction will be of just 7.5% instead of earlier projected in contraction of 9.5%. Okay. The forecast is predicated on return to growth of 0.1% in quarter 3 and 0.7% in quarter 4. So 0.1%, 0.7% might seem low to you, but mind you, this is a positive growth and this will bring the economy back from recession to, a period of growth, a positive growth. Okay, it is this ostensibly sanguine outlook of the economy that is hard to square with the RBI stand according to primacy to growth over price stability. So the editorial, the newspaper here is of the opinion that when you emphasize or when you highlight RBI's projection, whereby growth is already in the offing and inflation is out of the bound. But even then, Monetary Policy Committee is focusing on growth instead of inflation. Okay, but in my opinion, this particular view of Monetary Policy Committee is again correct because this particular growth or this particular percentage of growth will not be enough to spur the productivity in the economy. Okay, with the central bank prognosticating that, save some possible continued softening in the prices of cereals and transient easing of vegetable costs through winter, other food prices would persistently remain at elevated level. The Monetary Policy Committee's policy approach is clearly fraught with the risk. So this is actually the opinion of the newspaper. In my view, the emphasis on growth instead of inflation is a correct step, is a good decision by Monetary Policy Committee because growth in longer term is also going to bring down inflation. How so? Bring down inflation. Why? Because here in our case, understand the basics here. Inflation can be of two kinds. First is cost push inflation, and second is supply side factors. Okay, which are responsible for uh, inflation. So, for example, there can be demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Okay, so cost push inflation leads to supply side constraint, and demand pull inflation leads to or happens because of the higher purchasing power. The present kind of inflation is not a demand pull inflation; it is a cost push inflation. Now, if Monetary Policy Committee focuses on growth or uh, keeping the growth aside, I'm sorry, if it focuses on inflation and tries to tackle inflation by considering that it is a demand pull inflation, that would mean that it is going to adopt a hawkish monetary policy. A hawkish monetary policy would mean that RBI is going to increase the interest rates. But the inflation today is not because of the demand pull of nature, but is of cost push nature. And cost push nature, what we essentially need to do is to decrease the cost of production. So decreasing the cost of production is going to deal or is going to resolve the issue of cost push inflation. This editorial uh, makes a mistake whereby it considers emphatically that inflation that we are witnessing at present time is because of demand pull. If it would have been a demand pull inflation, then Monetary Policy Committee would not have been justified in supporting growth over inflation. But the kind of inflation that we are witnessing is not a demand pull inflation, it is a cost push inflation. And when inflation is due to the cost push factors, the kind of strategy that is adopted in the sector of monetary policy would be the same as if it is promoting growth. In that sense, a monetary policy which favors growth is also going to deal the issue of cost push inflation. Okay, so again, Monetary Policy Committee's decision to concentrate on growth is good because it is also going to deal with the problem of cost push inflation. By laying the onus on supply disruptions, profiteering, and taxes for the inflation spiral, the RBI is abdicating its primary mandate. Okay, so that is what the editorial is saying. But RBI's decision, I would again repeat, to focus on growth is justified, is correct, because even if the problem is inflation and not growth, then the kind of inflation that is persisting here is a supply side factor. It's due to supply side factor, and that happens because cost push factors. And in cost push factors, it is the supply disruptions which is the main problem. And that is why RBI's emphasis on monetary policy's onus on supply disruption is correct. Okay, this was all about our discussion on monetary policies committee's decision on concentrating on growth instead of inflation. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any doubt, if you face any doubt in understanding, अगर आप कोई भी डाउट आया हो इसे समझने में तो आप मुझसे पूछ सकते हैं. I'm also conducting classes on Unacademy's platform, taking special classes there, so you can watch those classes also. Thank you very much. If you subscribe for any particular program or course in Unacademy, apply this code to get 10% discount. Amit PS. Thank you very much.